is getting ready for the ICF credentialing exam. So one tip I would offer right out of the gate is when you're looking for information on the ICF credentialing exam, when you're on the ICF site, actually look for ICF credentialing exam. They're kind of using the CKA to reference the one that was from a little bit earlier. So it's just easier to find the newer components when you're looking for them. I think somebody's still got a lot of audio noise. Can we see if we can?
Can everyone be on mute, please? Huh?
Only if you're like in a noisy place. I'm not trying to just encourage.
Okay, sure.
So that would be the first thing I would share. I probably should also give you 2 seconds. My name is Jackie Schwab. I'm ICF MCC. I've been an MCC. This is my 2nd year. I started coaching in, I don't know. I got my first credential in 2017 at PCC. So I had to coach enough to get that at that point in time. I have over 3,500 hours. I stopped counting after that. I figured I was pretty good, unless they invent a MMM CCC, super credential. I should be pretty much okay. I've been very lucky and been allowed to participate with GCCP as a faculty. So, and also do a lot of the accessor exam preparation sessions. So I'm here today to help everyone who's maybe a little nervous about the ICF exam and to give you some preparation. So after the first couple, like 5 or 6 slides, which is informational, right? I'm just telling you things that you would want to know. I hope to be more interactive after that. And we actually have some sample questions, and I would love for people to participate, because you could read stuff just as easily as I can, but that's not why you're nervous, right? If you're nervous, it's nervous because you're like, but I need to do this by myself. I want to make sure I know what's going on. So, just so that you kind of know the format, I'll talk a little, we'll get to the exam questions, and then, oh, oops, sorry. Nah. Very nervous. You're ready already. I promise. You're ready already. But what we'll do is when we get to the questions, if you're open to it and you're not shy, I'll ask if someone would volunteer to read some of them. It might help with my accent if someone else might read them, and it might give you a little bit easier way of hearing them. But if you're not, that's okay, I'll do it. I also talk really fast, so please feel free to ask me to slow down. So today's tips and tricks. So the very first thing is, what does the format look like? It is a computerized administered exam, and it's proctored, meaning they're watching us when we take it. I think that actually is part of what also makes people a little bit nervous. But essentially, they're just doing that to ensure that there's a good quality to when someone is registered or seen as an ICF coach, right? They want people to know that we really did the thing, and like we didn't just sit there with our notes and write it out. I'm not sure you could cheat on this exam anyway. It's not like you go get the test, the crib sheets, right, or the note sheets. You can't go get sheets and write these are all the notes that it would be, because it's much more of a situational judgment test, which is why I said all of you are ready. If you've been through Hemant's program, which is one of the, I've gone through 5 PCC programs because I'm a nerd and I love them, and his is the hardest. So he's really prepared you. You already have the knowledge. Now we just need you to start trusting yourself. And so what will happen is they'll ask you a question that you're going to experience from a coachee, and you pick things that make the most sense. And if you don't know, then you open up your competency. I literally pulled it up. The format 2, you guys are all been through the program, and we have all of the list of the credentials. Pull up format 2 if you don't know, and look and start looking for where this might be in there. And you'll find it. And you'll go, oh, that's right, growth mindset. Oh, that's right, active listening. So I promise you're ready. But some people like to test in testing centers, and some people like to still be at home, or just operationally. If you live really far outside of maybe one of the larger testing centers, I suspect like Mumbai or Bangalore probably have testing centers. If you live in a smaller village down, really south, then maybe probably not, right? So there's some opportunities that it might be more difficult even to go on site for the exam, but they'll let you choose to be proctored on site or to do it online. Here's what you need to know about if you do it online thing, right? Have your testing area ready as if you were going to be there. And what I mean by that is clear your desk. No notes on your desk, because you are going to be asked to take your camera and your computer and show your desk. Right? They're gonna say, let me see. And you're gonna be like, no, but my room's a mess. Right? So clean up. Go in the area where there's not a lot of stuff. They're gonna ask for your ID. Have your ID ready, right? So that you're not nervous, like, oh no, I didn't know. Like, just, you'll be fine. Clear off your space, have your identification. They'll ask to see around, and then you'll be good. It is a 3-hour exam. It's unlikely that you'll need it. If you do need it, I would offer that don't second guess yourself. It's a judgment exam. You were probably right the first time, but now you're nervous. And like, I'm gonna go check everything else. And you're gonna second guess everything else. But if you're coaching, you would have picked the first thing. So that would be my second piece of advice. There is an optional break in between. So midway through, some of us are aging and have small bladders, so we may need that. So, and even if you don't, I would still offer that as an opportunity to consider, just to stretch, just to breathe. Like, even if you're feeling a little wound up, give yourself a minute, And there are 81 questions. I think 81 is a very odd number. I don't know why it's 81 questions, but it's 81. At least it's not 100, right? So they gave us a break there. And I said this again, but I'll say it one more time. It's a situational judgment test. Like, they have a right and a wrong answer they're hoping for, but it's much more about, like, what would I do if I were in the situation? I akin it to it's been a long time. When I was 16, that's when we get our driver's licenses over here. That was 30 years ago. I just had a birthday. So 30 years ago, when I took the writing exam for driving, there is a test. Then this one really matters. So really listen to this. It's a good example. On the test, they say, if there was a big bee in your car, what would you do? Right? One of the answers was freak out and yell and scream and drive your car off of the road, right? They literally wrote that. Then one is like, roll the window down. One is like, gently pull over to the side of the road, and something else. Now, what would I do? I probably would have started screaming and smacking at the bee, right? Like, I don't like bees. I don't like to be stung. I'm positive I would have done that. But that was not the right answer, right? So we're looking for, in your situational judgment, what would the ICF credentials say is the best answer, right? Even if you would have probably crashed your car smacking the bee, you're not going to answer that one, okay? So that's what the situational judgment test means. So I just talked a lot. So before I move on, would anyone like to ask anything around the format, questions, or anything about this? And you don't have to, but if you'd like to, I'll pause so I can take a drink of my tea.
Yeah, so when the questions are still fresh in your mind, if you wish to, please do, as Jackie has generously offered you the chance. Okay. Yeah.
And I'll keep going through, and if you want to ask questions throughout, only raise your hand just so we don't have everyone talking over each other, because that feels weird, but I definitely would love you guys to please take the time. And this is just info, so that makes sense. Okay, I'll breathe. So what's the format? Some of you who have been following the wonderful job that, I'm going to mess up your name again, Dr. Benkal, but she's been doing this great job of managing LinkedIn for us. And you'll see some of the questions on there are questions around the ICF credentialing exam, right? Trying to give some practice questions. But this is the format. So you'll be given one scenario and 4 options. and then asked what are the best and what is the worst out of the same 4 options. So think about that for one moment, right? If you get a question about the B, like don't crash your car into the wall, we already know that's not the best answer. So now we have 3 questions. We only have 3 options now for what's best. We also probably, you know, driving your car off a cliff, probably not good for best answer either. So you're down to really only two questions, guys, right? 2 answers. It's a 50-50 at this point. It's not 25% right. You also know that driving and smacking the bee is probably your worst answer, right? So you already, you know, you've already reduced that one. So use the question to help you narrow down, even if that's how you get through that one, right? You really only have 50% questions to ask. And there's usually one that I made the questions hard because you guys are much smarter than the average people in all of my test questions. But that's because when you get there, they're going to be so easy because you're going to go like, oh yeah, Jackie was splitting hairs on this one ICF ethics, but this person, you know, called them stupid. I'm pretty sure that's the worst answer, right? So it's not, they're not quite as meticulous as maybe some of the practice ones, because I knew you guys were smarter than that. I really did, I promise. So here's some great statistics that can be helpful for those of you who are very into numbers and knowledge and analysis. We may or may not know this part or may have not looked into it as much because we work on each of the CCs, right? The core competencies and all of our programming. So there, in that case, we have, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? We're working on each of our CCs. But then we're, the question?
I think it was a disturbance. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. No worries. So we usually work when we're learning, right? And in our PCC, we spent a whole, I think we spent a whole day on, I just was at one of Latha's great sessions. We'd spent a whole day just on establishments agreement, right? On the test, they kind of break it into 4 sections, so they just don't lump them in. But what I found really interesting is they really give 12 to 13% for every CC, right? So you're only going to have, let's say you know that you really struggle with evokes awareness. Okay. You have 90% of the other questions are still going to be on there, right? So it's not necessarily as intimidating where you're like, oh, that one place that I may not be as strong. So, okay, focus on your areas of strength. Give yourself a good shot on the other one. But I honestly, take the test, guys. Just go take it. You're going to be fresher if you're coming right off of the classes, because it is actually from what we're learning. It's literally from what we're learning. But that's just my opinion. You don't have to listen to my opinion for sure. But each of them is about 12 to 15%. Now here's some stats that I hope also make you feel better, right? The average completion rate is 122 minutes. So you have 180, average 122, and there are 81 questions. So like if you spent 1 minute per question, takes you that long to read 4 answers and all of the best worst. It's about 1 at a time. Yes, ma'am. Please unmute and ask your question. Ramya?
Jackie, I just am trying to give one thing here. For India, because English is not our native language, we get 4 hours instead of 3 hours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So you get 4 hours.
Yes, that is one thing.
India.
Maybe when you are coming to exams, when we are taking in Pearson Center, I heard one thing which happened recently. When we are taking a exam in the center, not our home, there is an option to take it in our home, and there is an option to take it in a center. So when we are going for the center, the ID card that we have to show should contain the signature, the address, and the name. and the name in the ID card and what we give in the exam, in the credentialing registration, those should match. If it does not, lately one person was not allowed into the center. Most of our ID cards in India, like Aadhaar card, does not have a signature. Our voter ID does not have a signature on it. So please ensure before registering for the exam, you have the right ID with the signature in it and your name in the ID card and the name you are giving while registering for the exam matches. I just wanted
Thank
to
you.
give that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wouldn't have no way of knowing that. So absolutely appreciate that. Thanks so much. Manhu, you have a question, sir? Oh, I asked you right before your power went out, didn't I? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, Jackie. This is Madhu here. Sorry, I got a power supply and disabled my video. Is there any
No worries.
difference between taking the exam at home and center? Does it make any difference or it's the same?
The questions are the same. The difference is when you're at home, you have to have the ability to use your camera to show them everything. And then like Ramya, I think just said, you still have to have that the ID with the signature. So any problem you would have had in center, you'll have the same problem there. And based on the fact that your power went out and disabled your video for a minute, I would say another important thing is plug in your computers. Do not take this this is on your phone exam, right? This is on a computer that's plugged in. You need, if your internet goes out in the middle, it doesn't count, right? They don't know what you're doing in the middle of your internet going out. So I would just be sure you have good internet, you have good, again, thank you, Ramya, you have good documentation because they'll be validating that. And then you can take the exam, then they'll share it with you. So you'll have to shut all your windows down. Like you can't have Internet Explorer open. They video your window. You can't have something open that you could get information on the internet, right? That kind of thing.
The
So
one
really be
difference
ready.
I heard between taking it at home and taking it in the center is that we cannot have a break in between at home. It's a 4 hours, one stretch. We cannot even take a break, I guess. Whereas in the center, I think we have part A, part B, where we get a 5-minute break in between. Part A is 41 questions and part B is 40 questions. In between, we get 5 minutes break. At home,
they're
we are
probably
not supposed to.
they're breaking the rule. Yeah, they're breaking the rule then. They're supposed to.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they're doing it wrong, but they're supposed to give you a break even if you are at home. What they ask you to do is keep your camera on. They're supposed to let you know that you're taking the break and you basically leave it open and go out and then come back and you have to show your room again. They're not always doing the rules the way they're supposed to, but they are supposed to let you. Especially if you have to go to the
Maybe I'm
bathroom.
mistaken there, Jackie. Maybe I'm
No,
I'm
you're probably
mistaken.
not. You may not be either. Like not everyone trusts everybody, so there's possibility.
The risk of, yes, what you said is losing the internet at home. There is no way of getting back onto the test in sense. Whereas if it is in the center, then the chances are less. Even in the center, if we take that 5-minute break, go out for the restroom and then come back, even though you're within the center, you're using only their washroom. When coming back, they are checking us thoroughly, it seems. Again, the second time they'll be checking us.
Yeah. Great insights.
Tejaswini, yes. Actually, I had a follow-up question from what Ramya just shared here, because while you're registering for your exam, the name that you share with them, you said that it has to match the ID. Is it the name that I'm giving for my certificate? Is that the one that I'm sharing, or it has to exactly match the my Aadhaar card?
It has to exactly match your ID card which you are carrying. Say, for example, Aadhaar card does not have the signature, so it does not become a valid ID card to carry for this Pearson Center exam.
Okay.
Our Aadhaar card does not carry a signature. Okay. So
Okay.
our voter ID does not carry it either. I don't think our voter ID has a signature on it. Okay. So I think passport does. But if in passport you have different surname, like say, for example, your husband's name, and you're giving your original name in your for the certificate, then you might have an issue there,
Okay. Okay.
right? So if your surname in the passport and your certificate are not matching, you might have a problem. So you have to carry an ID which carries a signature. Signature, address, and photo. All three things in one place.
Yeah, Hriday?
Thank you.
Thank you. So, addressing to what Ramya said, and there are only two identities which have signature in India. One is a passport, which is though readily available to everyone, but chances are some people might not have. Then there is an alternative, which is PAN card, which have our photo, which have our name, father's signature in it. It is the only ID by the government which gives slot for signature other than passport. So I think everybody should have PAN number nowadays, so that can be used. Just we have to check on the website.
In driving license also we have. I just checked it.
Yeah, but that's not very clear. Sometimes driving license in I'm not sure about driving license.
No,
Mine is
driving license, it is very clear. That is, if it is not validated, then it is a problem also nowadays.
yeah, very true, Dr.
Yes, sir. Madhu?
Yes, Jackie, no, this slide, I have a question on this slide and I am interested to know about.
Yeah, I was gonna get there, but we were kind of
So,
caught up on the IDs.
what happened to the other 10% who did not earn the credentials? Why did that happen? Did we have the data?
Well,
Because
let me tell you about the data first, and then we can answer questions about the data. How's that?
yeah,
I
sure.
haven't talked about the slide yet. We're still
Alright.
on the ID. So you guys will get 4 hours instead of 180 minutes. I still don't think you'll need all of that time. And they did a pilot exam, right? So they did a pilot of the ICF credentialing exam. And they of that pilot exam, they did a subset of ACC, PCC, and MCC. And 91% of them, oh, it's a reminder that I should be at this meeting with you guys. And when they did the exam, 91% of ACCs passed right away, 90% of PCCs passed, and 86% of MCCs passed. And before we get there, I would love someone to tell me, why do they think 86% of MCCs passed instead of 90%, or, like the others? There's no wrong answer, guys. Somebody guess. You're on mute, sir. Mathu, you're on mute.
The more advanced the credentialing goes, probably the toughness increases.
Same test. Sunil, why?
I thought maybe the options would be less in MCC.
So I'm going to tell you why, because I think it'll help you feel better. Oh, we got a question in chat. Oh, still more of the ID stuff. Okay. Who has just finished a rigorous exam, or rigorous ICF level 1 or level 2 program? ACCs, PCCs, right? They're given a rigorous program of all of the credentials. What are the credentials? What do the credentials need? What are all the CCCs? MCCs, we don't re-go through, right? In none of our programs, except the new GCCP, we will, right? But I've taken a few MCC programs as well. I've taken 4 of them. None of them go through again and dive really deep into what are all the credential rank, right? The CCs. They go, how do we get out of what into who? How do we get into who? How do we dig into? They work on the craft of, right? Whereas in the first two, very often the first two credential paths, we're working really hard on what is growth mindset? What is active listening? So what does that say to you? This exam is really about knowing those competencies, right? It really, really is. And these people, MCCs, we're not as fresh on them. We haven't done them most recently. Most of our programs are working on our craft, not to practice our tests, right? The first two people really are, most of the time, we're like, I just got to get my credential. I got to get the first credential. So I think that gives a little insight into why I would say, please take your test soon. Like, come off of your exam, right? Come off of your training, give yourself a little time, but now is the time, not later. Now is the time, because now that the knowledge is really close into your head. So then the question that we got after that is now, well, what happened to the 9% who didn't pass? They take it again. Take it again, right? You have to pay for it again. So if you don't have the means to do that, maybe study a little harder. Take it again. So I'm going to tell you an embarrassing thing about me, because that makes you believe me, right? As a vulnerable person, we learn about that in rapport in the C on CodeUp, right? I took my MCC, my second evaluation. My first one I passed right away, and I got all nervous. I took 8 more times to pass my second one. Now, my PCC, done. First recording, put it in, awesome. Second recording, put it in, awesome. My first MCC, put it in, awesome. I'm like, oh, this is great. And then I had a lot of trouble with my second MCC. Why? Same reason that MCCs got less here. I had too much time. Let too much time happen between when I did my first ones and I did my learning and I did that stuff, and then I did the next one. Right? I got into my own way of coaching. Maybe a little, right? Maybe a little bit. Maybe not so much ICF coaching. So if you don't pass, take it again. You can take it again, right? You can I took mine 9 times, so you can take it at least 9 times. I know that's true. I did have to pay for it every time though. That was not optimal. But so there's really not, other than financial, and I understand, like, you know, that wasn't great for me either. There's not a negative mark or an implication. You take it, they give you good feedback. If you don't pass it, you take it again, you get good feedback, right? And hopefully that helps. So I'll stop talking for a second. And Madhu, do you have still another question related to that question then? Or something else? You're not
Fine,
muted.
Jackie. I'm fine.
I'm sorry, so yeah, you're good? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Anyone else? I'm still really good coach, by the way. And now I feel sad. I'm like, don't tell anyone, and then I tell everyone. So it's not a big thing. Okay, so we got here a little extra early when we were talking about the ID stuff. So maybe I don't need to go through quite as fast. You already know the differences in India with the native language challenge stuff. But preparation for the online, right? Make sure you have, they'll give you information, they'll email you information on running some system tests. Make sure your space is clear. Post this spot. Okay. I was like, what's happening? Identification, we have clearly covered a lot. So make sure that that's all good and you have everything you need. And then you will be sent, you know, online testing policies. So they'll give you information ahead of time. So just review that. On the day of the test, you're going to want to run your system test again. They'll ask you to check into an appointment. Then they'll have you take some photos and do the video around your room. They change it depending on the online proctor, but you'll be asked to basically show what your room looks like and then start the exam. They'll also teach you or tell you how to connect to them during the exam if you need something or for your break. Unless, of course, you're using an exam center that doesn't allow the middle break, which Ramya had shared. And again, that's very possible too, right? They're supposed to, but we're supposed to do a lot of things in life. I'm supposed to work out regularly and I don't, so it's always things that we're supposed to do. Now, how do we prepare? Which is really all you really wanted to know anyway, but how do you prepare? Coach. That is way more important than a lot of the other things. Coach. Go to your buddy session. Go to CMC, right? YML. Coach, but coach with intention. If I were to offer my perspective, go into Sunil, can I pick on you? Yeah. Okay. So Sunil, we're going to practice coaching right now, but we're going to practice coaching on one thing because we know we're getting ready for exam. We want to coach on maintains agreement, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you should coach and practice on. So I'll say, all right, what's some problem you have coming in your life right now? Or something you're willing to even make up. It doesn't have to be real. What would you like to bring into coaching today? Scaring you.
Okay, so do I have to decide on something related to maintaining presence?
No, just pick something.
Okay,
Just pick something.
Okay, I think I procrastinate a lot nowadays.
Okay. So our intent today then is to talk around procrastination as we're preparing for this credential exam. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
So what would you like to accomplish today in our little time together around procrastination, right? You talked about that a little.
Maybe get a little motivated and be less procrastinating.
So less procrastinating.
Yes.
How are we going to measure that you're procrastinating less in the session? Like, can you tell me more about what you're thinking there?
Well, if I feel motivated, enthusiastic about what I want to do, I guess I would not be procrastinating. I would have the drive to do what I want to do.
So on a scale of 1 to 10,
Mhm.
what's your drive right now?
I think I'm somewhere around 5, 6.
5, 6. And so where would you like to be at the end of the session?
7, 8.
7, 8? Okay, cut. What do we practice one thing? One thing. Maintain, we got an agreement, right? What are you doing? And we had something measurable. Then I would talk to your buddy and go, okay, what is the best thing you did in that? And you may go, oh, you really kept asking him about something measurable. What's the worst thing you did? Well, Jackie, you missed this thing, right? You didn't ask this thing. That was the worst thing you did. Right. So if I were practicing, we need to practice real life situations because that's what we're getting tested on. So if you really want to practice and use coaching for that, then set your intention around that CC, do a small part of it or ask them to look at that part and then ask, what was the best thing about that? What would have been a better outcome? What would have been a worse thing? Worst thing I could have asked, oh, so you're really bad at procrastination. Like, yeah, stop it. Is that a good response as a coach? No.
Not at all.
Or I would have said, well, why are you so bad at that? We wouldn't do that, right? You just practice knowing what the worst options are. So hopefully that's supportive. And you prepare any way you want, but that would be an option. Thanks, Sunil. I appreciate
Welcome.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Letting me use you as an example.
Sure.
Review the ICF core competencies. So something that I think is super important that they bring up a couple times is probably in another slide, but I'm going to bring it up again. They really, really do focus on the ethics. They focus on ethics even weaved into the other competencies. Okay. So if you haven't gone through all of their ethics stuff online and all their little mini ethics videos and really dove in, I would. I've noticed in some of the answers that I'm getting back from my students on the practices, most of them are struggling around picking what ICF's ethics would be on it. Right? Remember, again, it's not whether you would drive your car into a wall because there's a bee in there. Right? It's whether or not you asked the bee how he was doing today, and you told, right? Like, it's about you're being present with the bee. But you really want to make sure you answer ICF ethics, not our own, right? What would ICF say is appropriate in that one? And they say that like a whole bunch of times when they're preparing us, because of that, you know, percentage that people aren't getting, like that's the high percentage, the ones they're struggling with. And we all focus a lot more on, right? We focus a lot on how do I actively listen? Because it's a practice. It's a practice. How do I grow, right? Growth mindset, or it's a practice. So that's what we practice. But ethics, we think we get, because why would you do that unethical thing? But it's their ethics, not ours. I know I beat that. I said that a bunch of times, but I'll say it again because they kept saying it to us. Find examples of what core competencies look like done well and not done well. There are some great YouTube videos by all kinds of wonderful MCCs where they coach a little, they stop. They tell you what things are showing up, right? They'll tell you which CCs are coming up. Those are probably good ones, I hope. A couple of them are really good. And then just go look at other people's coaching videos on YouTube. Everybody's a coach now, right? So like go watch somebody else's random one. And not not into pick on people or to say mean things to them, or but look at their, right? If they're, especially if they're not ICF, they don't mention their ICF, like, okay, good. They're not following the rules. We know they're not following the rules on purpose. Okay, cool. Look for where they're not demonstrating it. Look for where they cut people off when they're talking, right? Look for where they miss that obvious problem. This, right? So we can find lots of ways to, in real life, practical, doing it together, ways of looking at the competencies and evaluating how others are doing. If you have buddy coaches you've already worked with, or you're in YML CMC, go into that and say, okay, or we're coaching today, but let's coach around what would have been a bad way you could have handled that too, right? What would have been a worst way? What would have been the best way? And that gives you some real life experience if you don't have a lot of clients now to maybe get that for yourself. Oh, this is a good one. I love this. This is such a good example for you. When you're reading the scenario, do not add details to it. Also, do not delete, right? Was it Hemant's class he did on NLP, right? Deletions, distortions, what, like we filter, right? Don't filter in or out. So if it talks about if they give you all this info, if they say there's a female coach who has 2 children, who's working with a client, and she's really struggling with balancing home and life. They told you as a female coach with kids. That's in play. That's something that when we're seeing what best and worst, they gave us that data. If they say there's a coach who's balancing work and life, they didn't say anything else, nothing else. No mom, no woman, nothing, right? Don't add or remove your own bias. Read the question, use the data in the question, and that's all. And then I said this before, I'll repeat it. This is what they would do, not what you would do. Right? This is what the ICF would have said to do on the competencies, not Jackie driving her car into the wall because of the bee. Okay? It really matters. And that's where all of their examples of where they think people maybe had a little trouble, where when they answered more around, well, what would I do versus what would the competencies do? So I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute because I see, well, I guess I just see questions. What about confidentiality? Do we make minimum pass marks on all domains? What do we need to get out of 81 questions to pass? All right, so that's stuff you can look up. First of all, they don't tell you. They say there's this really weird long formula they use, and there's like 600 to 800 passing. They don't tell you on purpose, right? Just go take the test, guys. Take the test, you'll pass if they pass you. They don't mark wrong answers wrong, they only count up right answers. What does that mean? I don't know. Like, just do your best, take the test, and then you pass based on their percentage of how passing. They don't give you it's not like school. 1% is failing and 99% is passing, right? They count the ones you get right. And I didn't see the other one, so I will stop in case something's confidential when they're asking a question. Or maybe Milan, maybe you can grab them next time and we can look at them. So what do you need to pass out of 81 questions? I don't know. They didn't tell us. So now we both don't know. That's probably helpful. Do we have to get a certain minimum pass mark on all the domains, and what's the passing? No, it's total. It's total. It's not like you have to pass 80% of each of the markers. They just give us the percentage of which questions come from those areas so that you know it's fully covering. But it's how many correct answers you get over the whole test. And you could completely not do one marker and still pass, right? And even in PCC, when you do your PCC, CCC, the CCR, the recordings, you don't have to get above on all of your recording either, right? Especially at PCC, they want to show you demonstrate it. And there's actually this really great line that you guys never will see, that you never heard, because they teach us in accessor training. And it's in the very beginning. And I love that they say this to the accessors. They say, your job is not to catch them messing up. Our job is to find a way to show where they didn't mess up, right? So in the PCC, they say, find a way to show they made this marker. The opposite of like teachers, where they look for you did something wrong, so they mark you off. That's not the advice they give us. They say, find what they're doing right. You can do it wrong a couple of times and do it right a little more and still pass. Right? They don't want to not have you pass. Now, MCC, we're not all there yet. You're gonna get a pass. But PCC, they're like, find them doing it right. Find them doing it right. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of assurance. Matu, what is, I don't understand your question. I'm sorry. What about confidentiality assurance? Can you reframe? I'm sorry,
No, Jackie, it was in the discussion that you had with Sunil. You
Yeah.
went to the agreement, but you did not do the assuring him of the confidentiality. That's the reason I mentioned that.
Oh, yep, absolutely. That would have been part of a competency. In that case, I was just doing a little mini one. But yes, great job. That would have been one of the worst ones, right? What did you not do good? If that was on the list, make sure you tell them the confidentiality. Yes, that'd be best. Not doing it, worst. Absolutely. Good call out, right?
Thank you.
You should go take the test
Yes.
right now. I might keep saying that to you guys. You think maybe I might? Okay, I'm gonna get into questions next, so I will stop sharing again. Before I get into some of the questions, I'd like to stop and breathe and ask if anyone else has questions other than, but even if you're already asked one, that's fine. Anyone else have any questions before we kind of move on to like some sample questions?
Yeah, so I was just having one suggestion to this group. See, Jackie can come maybe once a quarter, or some other faculties can come once a quarter. But the idea is that this group should be self-driven, right? So in that, with that principle in mind, what I suggest that Milind and you can discuss and find 3 volunteers who have taken the credentialing exam. 3 volunteers. And like what Jackie rightly said, in the practice session, you do the coaching, taking into the consideration the credentialing exam aspect, that is best and worst. So you will discuss, you will give in the coaching conversation, you will highlight, okay, this is the best way. In the same coaching conversation, you will also highlight, this is the worst way. So it is like a demo video you are creating for all aspirants of the credentialing exam. Because I believe that all the wisdom is already with us, right? We don't have to depend on the third person to come and teach you, right? So if you already, but of course, you need to have that credentialing exam experience so that you will be in a much better position to understand the best and the worst and what are the type of examples or the phrases what ICF uses. So these 3 volunteers who have already taken the exam can go and start having these Zoom conversations, right? And those particular recordings then can be given to the Niriksha operations team, and then the operations team can do the required editing and all that, and then creating that particular small videos, YouTube videos, so that we will have our own bank for the credentialing exam preparation, right? So this is my first point. And the second point, what I will discuss with Jackie, that is right now for every CC, right now the type of the CK exam what MML has after every module, right, is the exam based on that content of the module and not based on this particular credentialing exam format. So me and Jackie will work parallelly, wherein we can create, because we are covering 8 CCs. So on 8 CCs, we will create the questions based on case, and at the end of that particular module, you means the new learners also will go through it. So during this program, they will have that particular, say, glimpse, right, sample of how they have to think from the terms of the CC. So one action I'm taking for the management, that is Jackie and me. One action I would like this particular team to take, 3 to 4 volunteers. So Milind can coordinate with you. Yes.
Thank you, Hemant, sir. And also, many of you also know, that I already created as well and shared on our group 100 questions that cover the best, worst, and that are covering a lot of the different credentials. And I love Hemant sir's idea of, let's making sure per CC so that we can get that practice as we go along. I think that will go really far, I hope, into just giving us some confidence in the exam. And I'm sorry, Sunil, I saw you raise your hand. I didn't mean to cut you. Oh no, you're like thumbs upping. Okay, cool. So thank you. I think that's great, Hemant sir. We'll make sure we work through that. Good timing too, because we're looking at the North American launch and we can add those in.
Yeah.
So any other questions before we maybe do at least 1 or 2 questions and kind of work through them together? All right, so we're passive group. That's okay. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor then. Go find your little emoji reactions, which I think you guys can do those things. And please give me a thumbs up if this is helpful, and a thumbs down if you're not getting what you need. And anyone who doesn't react, I'm going to assume you're driving in the car, because I assume a positive intent, or I just annoy you. All right, so a couple of you are driving the car. I know Teja Sweeney is not driving the car, so she doesn't love me anymore. Vinyu doesn't love me either. Me too. Oh, hey, me too. How are you? Nice to see you again. All right, wonderful. Good interaction.
Can I ask the question? Yeah,
yes, please.
MCC CKA exam, do we already, one batch had already taken that, or how? That is my first question. Second question, from when this MCC CKA has started? Yeah.
Are you a PCC?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So the PCC, ACC, and MCC did pilot exams. They basically just the people who were credentialed took the exam. They're not different exams. They're the same exam. So,
Okay. So for my MCC, I don't need to write any exams, CKA exam.
not if you took it, okay, I don't know your whole life. If you took the CKA exam at a certain date, then the answer is you still have to take it again. Right, but if you finished your PCC after a certain date, it's a different one. So I'll have to go, or you can go online onto the MCC or ICF website, and that gives you the distinction. I think it's an August date of whether or not you still can take the old one or if you have to take the new one.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, just go online and check. How many do we have? A lot of PCC or a lot of MCC candidates on the call?
Not exactly MCC candidates, because they have got the PCC recently, right? So unless they are coaching in the organization
Oh,
for 8 hours, I think they will take.
yeah, you got a lot of hours yet to go. Yeah. Yeah. Which is why, like, part of it, right? So when you saw on the pilot, the other thing, ALN Coaching University, the other thing that's interesting, so I'm glad you asked the question actually, is the number of PCCs that took the pilot was such a small N, or such a small number, that they actually called it out to say it looks like only 83% passed, but like 3 MCCs took it. They didn't have enough during the pilot time to have good statistics. So if I unscared all the PCs and then scared you, the number of people who were able to take it is really, really small. So I wouldn't, and if you're a recent PCC graduate, you probably do have to take the new credentialing exam if you did the old one when you were a PCC. If you did the new one as a PCC, you do not. Right, so if you're a new PCC, you guys are good. If you're an old one like me, you might have to take the new exam. Sunil, you had a question, sir?
Yes, thank you so much. Now, Jackie, it's quite easy for me to say that I've come close to 100 hours of coaching, but getting to 500 hours might take some time. So let us say that although I have done the level 2 ACTP coach training, okay, and maybe in the next month I want to apply for ACC, I give my credentialing exams. Is there a validity in that particular examination? For example, I give my ACC exam, I get my ACC credentials. Then within 8 months, if I were to tell ICF that, hey, you know what, I've done the rest 400 hours and I want to get PCC credentials, do I have to go for another exam, or how does it go?
So this is an opinion, okay? This is Jackie's opinion. I have not cleared it with him, sir. I feel that there is there's so much validity in getting your credential. I would get your ACC. I would do it now. I would get your ACC because you have enough hours. I would take the exam because now you are done with the exam.
Okay.
You have to get mentor coaching hours no matter what, right? You have to do all that. But I would do it. I would get it, because once you pass the credentialing, you're fine. And then you can go to PCC later. That's what I would do. You have to decide what's best for you. Now you're going to have to pay for ACC, and then you're going to have to pay again to credential for PCC. So, right, there's that cost implication, but I would go do it. I would do it right now, get it out of the way while it's fresh, and then go to get your PCC next.
So
Hemant, do you want to share, sir? Oh,
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm
so-
sorry.
Okay, and I'm so sorry. So what I'm trying to understand is that, Jackie, when you get your credentials, there is no validity as such. For example, is there a validity like 12 months, this is valid, or 2 years, this is valid?
There
Okay.
is, right? There's a length of period between when you have to re-credential. But what's interesting, go ahead. Well, someone's sharing their screen. Is that Hemant?
Yeah.
You want to talk?
No, sorry. You please continue after you.
Okay.
Let's continue.
Oh yeah, this is the August thing and then August thing. Right, and then there, right, you're sharing, right? If you've already passed the one exam prior to this and you need to do the new one. So I would say go to the ICF website to get the information. Usually there's like I think it's 2 years, right? I think every 2 years I have to update my MCC. I'm not positive exactly how much for ACC or PCC. I think it's at least yearly.
Yeah, so Jackie, the website of ICF has a FAQ under the credentialing exam. So there is a question. Once I take the updated ICF credentialing exam, that is now, means now is all updated, will I need to take it again if I apply for another credential? Means the question of Sunil. At this time, the ICF credentialing exam must be taken with each new application for the credential, even if the exam has already been passed. The ICF credentialing, and so the answer is here. So what I request everyone that go to the ICF website and go to this section of ICF credentialing exam, and you will get all the information, including the FAQs.
Yeah,
Thank you. Sir.
They did change that one. I still recommend you do it though. And here's why. What you're nervous about is this exam, right? When you take it and you'll be like, oh, yeah. Like I swear, I know that people are there's a cultural difference on exam takings. I think, you'll be so surprised at how well you do that it will give you so much confidence. You won't be nearly as worried about, right, doing it the next time.
Right.
I really think that is true. I would still do it. I would do it.
Thank you, Jackie.
I really would.
Thank you.
Everyone planning. Oh, yep. So Hemant sir said, here we go. Can the questions that Jackie posted in the group be reshared, please? Sure. There, I'll grab it.
So,
PDF it.
Milind, these particular questions, you please email to all the YML CMC members as well, because many times on the WhatsApp group, you can miss the message, but they can easily search in the email, right? So the YML members should get those 100 questions.
Okay.
In email.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have the I branded everything just quick at YML CMC for that and for this presentation, and I've shared all of them. If you want anybody to make them prettier or make them formatted better, that's great too. We did not get a chance to go over any questions, friends. So if anyone wants to stay, I'll at least do one. If you need to go, please do go, because I acknowledge that it's later in the day for you guys. It's early in the morning for me. But I heard someone off mute. Does someone need to say something? No? Okay. So I want to at least do one question if I can. Again, stay if you can, leave if you must. This is recorded. There'll be presentations, all those things. So exam questions. So like literally just walking through one and talking about what is or isn't in there. Does somebody want to read the question out loud that might serve this group better?
I'll do that. Okay.
Great.
Okay. A coach is meeting with a prospective client who's growing a new business. The coach and the potential client quickly establish an easy connection. The coach is excited about the opportunity to work with the client. As the coach and the client are ending their conversation, the prospective client briefly mentions the name of their new business. The coach recognizes the business as a coach is an investor in a more established competitor business in the same community. What should the coach do?
Thank you. Thank you. So before we even get into anything about the answers, right? What may be the topic of this coaching? What best or worst might be already happening before you even go to the questions?
The integrity of the coach to share the conflict of interest.
Yep, so it's probably an ethics related question. Okay. If I ask you a code up question, what is one thing that the question directly tells us that we learned about this coaching relationship?
Yeah, that-
Be authentic and share. Whenever you find it conflicting, be openly sharing that.
Right, I would say the other thing is the word connection, right? So the first code up is CODAP is connection. So we know that, what do we know? We know already that this person does have rapport. We know that this is probably going to be a question related to ethics, right? We know that this is a business coaching scenario from what we can see. And then I repeated my question again, so I have to fix my slide. All right, so of the best actions, what can we say are bad or right away eliminate potentially? So Sunil, do you want, I think you raised your hand before. Do you want to read what the best action options are?
The best action would be
Or just read the whole
okay,
option
okay,
set,
all right,
sorry.
all right, okay. Not say anything. Try to keep their role as an investor in a competing business separate from their role as a coach. Second, share that the business name sounds familiar and make a mental note to determine whether it is a competitor business later that evening. 3, share their role as investor in the competitor business only if the potential client follows up to pursue coaching with the coach. The last, share their role as an investor in a competing business and acknowledge the possibility of a conflict of interest with the client.
Great. So is there anything here that you're like, yeah, the ICF's credential, right? ICF would go, that is not the right answer.
The first seems to be like the worst answer.
Yeah,
Not
the
saying-
first one, because we're talking about ICF and conflict of interest. There's a whole section on conflict of interest. So we already know for the best question, it's probably not the best. Yeah, it's not the best.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have 3 questions. We have three other options.
Right.
Anything
and-
else here like, oh, I don't know if that would be the best. Right, that sounds like a bad conflict, a bad ethics. Anything else on here strike you as maybe not a good answer?
All right. So now the other 3 seem to have the same thing, share, share, share. And now we need to understand whether this is something where, as a coach, what is expected. So maybe like the second one, which says make a mental note and then try to see whether it's a competitor business later in the evening. That does not sound the best one. So we can rule that out. Then we're left with the last 2.
Best. There we
Yeah.
go. Okay. Not
Share
the
the
best.
roles,
Great.
yes. And then the last 2 ones we have, again, share the role as an investor in the competitor business only if the potential client follows up to pursue coaching, or share the role as an investor competing business and acknowledge the possibility. So I guess out of these 2, the last one seems more ethical, more genuine. So we can go with that as the best one.
All right. And then there's a bunch of comments in the comments. So shall be 4, 4, 4, 4. Okay. All right. I like that. So what I'm seeing, the thing that I would have pulled out, right? For the other one, just to give my why I wouldn't on the third. Only if they want to pursue this with me. All right, but then why not now? Because then they might not pursue this with you. Right? What is your intention behind not? The intention behind not doing it is because you think that they may not want to be coached by you now, right? So that would be my thought. So you got the first 2. So if we go to the next one, share. Because if you didn't share this way, you didn't share it for a reason. Right? You went, they might think that they might worry if I can be independent. They might, you know why you didn't do that, right? You know why you didn't do that. So now we already looked at this and we already figured out the best. Now if we go to the worst, well, we know it's not these 2. but we're already done this part. We already know it's not these two. Yeah. So now what's the worst?
Well, the first one again, because that's the one that we ruled out as the worst. Yeah.
Yeah, we already answered it, right? That's what you guys are doing. These are the questions. This is their sample question, by the way, from the ICF with their answers, not Jackie's versions, right? Did anybody like really struggle with this question? You don't have to tell me because then you'll feel bad. It's okay. But anyone else? No, someone screenshot this time. Again, you don't have to stay here if you guys want to leave. Next question, right? If anyone wants to stay around for this, someone other than Sunil, because I pick on him all the time. Anyone else want to read the question that's still here that wants to share? You're on mute, Doctor. If you're talking to us, oh, she's talking to someone else. Okay, I'll just read it then. You guys will have to.
Yeah, I can
Oh
do
no,
that.
go ahead.
I'll
Yeah,
read.
please,
I'll read. Can I?
Yeah, go
Yes,
on, Jack, please.
please.
A client struggles with delegating tasks at work to other team members. During the last session, the client shared that an important project they are leading is falling behind schedule. The coach supported the client in identifying strategies to delegate tasks to other team members. At the next session, the client reports back and shares, "In the end, I decided to complete all the tasks myself. That was the only way to get them done on time." The coach feels disappointment that the client did not follow through on their plans to delegate. What should the coach do?
Thank you. So first question I have, how do you guys feel about the coach is disappointed in the client?
Actually,
Is that a coach mindset thing?
The coach cannot actually feel disappointed because ultimately it's the client's call. So if the client is leading the actions, then the coach cannot sit in judgment on whether an action is right or not.
Yes,
Right,
it is
so-
a
so
mindset question. Mindset question.
Yeah, thank you.
yeah,
Thank you, Ellen.
the coach,
Oh.
coach should not get attached with the actions of the client.
Look at this. Why are you worried about this test? We're not even in the answer questions yet, guys. Yeah? Okay, so now I'm gonna give you like help because you don't need it, right? Doctor, you want to read again? Is that okay?
Yeah,
Dr. Jason?
okay.
Yeah.
The first one, immediately reflect back on the last session with the client and identify what they could have done differently to support the client in following through on their plans. Second, take a breath and acknowledge that the client is responsible for their own choice of whether to follow through with their stated plans or not. Third, set aside the disappointment for now and focus on the current session with the client. Decide to reflect on this situation during an upcoming session with their mentor coach. Fourth, praise the client of meeting the project deadlines, but ask why the client failed to support their team members' development.
Okay, thank you very much. So if we look at these four, I am not shocked, but when I asked about what you noticed in the first question, someone already said the client's responsible for their own choice. Did Milan, is that you? Did you literally say that when I asked you a question about the question?
Yes, yes.
Huh. I wonder if that might be a good question. I don't know. What do you think?
No, see,
Yeah.
that is an opinion which isn't based on these four alternatives. Okay, that's an opinion before seeing these alternatives. Right now, I can say that the worst is the fourth one. Huh.
Okay. So cool. So we're gonna do this then. It's like, I think the worst is this, so we're gonna make it go away. But without looking at
For
the
reasoning
outcome of the
that out,
question.
Jackie, probably
yeah,
for
yeah.
worse, two things stand out in point number 4. One is praise. There is no praise according to ICF, and there is no asking why. So on
Thank
those
you.
two
Perfect.
counts, this is the worst option.
Absolutely love it. Because if we say the other one, right? The big F word. We don't use F words with our clients. Failed is one of the F words we don't use with our
Yes.
clients, right? We don't like F words, stay away from our clients. So
Yes.
great. So you gave 3 reasons why that was not the right answer. Okay. What else can we get rid of?
Set aside the disappointment for now and focus on the current session. So setting aside disappointment means the client, the coach is still holding the disappointment. They're not over it. So there is a potential chance for bias in the session.
Okay. So I'm gonna judge anything. Yep. Okay. Anything else you want to share? How about of 1 and 2 that are left? What's something that strikes you as good or bad that you can go, yeah, I think it's this one.
I take 2 as best for one point, because it is taking a breath and acknowledging the client is responsible. That means the coach is dealing with their disappointment first.
Yeah.
So doing that brings the coach to a neutral position so that they can be the coach in the session. So because of that, point number 2 stands out for me as best option. Point number 1 is good option, but not the best, because it says immediately reflect back, because the coach has not dealt with their disappointment. The coach has not acknowledged that they are disappointed. On those 2 counts, immediately reflecting back will seem like is the coach's agenda to drive, hey, you said you will do that. What could you have done better? It's a good, it is put nicely.
Yeah.
The second part of the sentence is put nicely, but the coach has not done with their emotions yet.
Yeah. Who is
The
this
coach
about?
the coach is reacting in first. He is not reflecting or responding to the situation.
Right. So when I was looking at the first one, what struck me was, who is this about? What could they have done differently? Who is they in this first one? Who is this focused on?
The client.
No, it's not. That's the problem. They said the last session with the client and identified what they could have done differently to support the client. That's about the coach's problem.
It's not the
That's the
coach.
coach,
Okay.
The coach is relating to the client. Absolutely.
right? So what I loved about this question already was before we even got into questions and answers, we were given the answer before we were presented with the options.
Yeah,
Right.
but Jackie, I must say that this is a little bit difficult question, because the option seems to be good and very good, something
Yeah.
like. But I think Ramya has
Oh, yeah.
wonderfully. Yeah. So
Yeah,
very
yeah, no, absolutely. They're hard. They're harder, right? They're not like just, but
Yeah.
what I thought was great was like when we were just talking about the question, our first sir said, he said literally out loud, what do I notice about this question? I noticed that the client is responsible for their own choices. He said that before he saw the options.
Yeah.
And then so what if when you're taking this exam, my friend, what if you said, all right, before I go and read all of the options and I rush into my test, because that's not a coaching mindset, is it? We pause. What if instead you paused and said, what would be my best action right now? What am I feeling about this question right now? And then when the questions come up, what if you just got to validate what you just said? That's what our first sir did, yeah? He's like, oh, I feel this. This is what I think is the right answer. It's subjective. And then he looked at the questions and he went, well, this is lovely. Look at that. I'm going to still read them all, but I already said this thing. Yeah. So this first one's hard though, right?
Yeah.
The first one's hard.
Yeah, and also look for the phrases which are there in the PCC markers. Now, acknowledge that the client is responsible for their own choice is the phrase what ICF uses in their definition and the PCC marker, so that you immediately understand. That is the reason why you should be preparing well for the definitions of all the CCs, criteria of all the CCs and PCC marker. And when the phrase matches, your job becomes easy.
You guys are so good at this. Okay. So what did we decide was the worst? Did we decide? So we know this one is a good one. So we don't care about this one. So what is the worst option? We said this one's pretty good, right? You said, Ramya, this is good. This is goodish. We were like, yeah, okay, okay.
Fourth one.
So now we've got these. The fourth one, you think fourth phrase?
is
All
the
right,
worst.
anybody else? Worse? Yeah. Why?
On debating on point 3 also, Jackie, what out of 3 and 4, what does more harm to the client? If the coach is setting aside their disappointment and carrying on with the session, the coach is potentially working with bias, and that might lead to a more harmful situation for the client than the fourth one.
Yeah, I love it. And it also, like, you guys already called it out, right? So that was the best action. I find the worst action. Praising the client. Like, there's a couple things in this one. There's the word failed. There's praising them for that. We could have acknowledged or validated that they might have a strength for meeting deadlines. It's different, right? If we're the elephant and the tortoise, we might have been like, oh, I noticed you met these deadlines. That sounds like a strength you have.
Yeah. So, Jackie, just one point for everyone's benefit. See, the word is wrong. The praise word is wrong. If
Yeah,
the word is acknowledge the client meeting then now means you have to think twice, because the acknowledging is all right. Praising means you are validating the client action, right? That you are not supposed to do. You can't validate, you can acknowledge, right? So these are the words: praise, failed. So if you can catch the words, then it is a easier job. Why? Because of the time constraint. Because right now we are discussing on this question for the 5-10 minutes, but in the exam you are having 2 minutes. So unless you have this technique of catching the words, right, you can't score 100%, because every one of you are going to pass. I am only talking about 10%.
Yeah, exactly. And with that being said, and we won't go into any more because I've taken way too much of your time already, but what I would offer is coach yourself, right? So, like, coach yourself through the question. You guys just did it now. It's like, okay, what's the worst action? Well, we already know this is good. All right, done. Okay. Well, how do I feel about praise for a client? What do I think about that? Oh, I think praise is a word that I would be nervous about. Right, so you can start crossing things off right away. You put a line through, right? Or if you're not taking a pencil, right? Go through, yeah, that doesn't make sense. So hopefully this was helpful and gave you guys some additional confidence to go forth and be wonderful, amazing coaches like you already are. I do have 6 more questions in that deck, so I'll remove one of my errors I just saw, and then I will send the deck into the main session so that you guys all have the same info. And also there's the deck of 100 questions. We'll make sure that gets somewhere that it's readily available. And as Hemant sort of said, we'll also work toward augmenting our programs going forward to make sure we add this as something that we work through incrementally and hopefully to build confidence. And you guys know how to get a hold of me. Just ask me questions, send me questions. I'll be happy. I think the world is a better place with more coaches in it. So, and they're all waiting for you. They're waiting for you and you're not there. That's about you, not about them.
Yes.
I invite you to join me.
Yeah.
Okay, friends.
Rudolph,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So Rudolph has asked one question that 31st May 2023 onwards, the CKA. See, there are 2 words. One is called as CKA, another is called as credentialing exam. So earlier there used to be CKA, which is now discarded. Now it is credentialing exam. So all of you present here are going to take credentialing exam, not the CK test. So you don't have to worry. When you will apply, ICF is going to give you the link for the credentialing exam only. So there is no confusion here. The confusion was for the old students who want to renew their application and all that, they already have taken CKA. So they had a question now whether I need to take it again or not. So the ICF saying yes, after 31st of May, whether you have earlier taken CKA or not, you shall take the credentialing exam. So that is applicable for different people. For entire this particular quorum, you have to take a new credentialing exam.
So I'm going to make an offer to all of you on the call today. Because I want you to take the test, you guys. And I think that you're not taking it because you're scared. If you commit to taking the test in the next month, I will commit to giving you a free coaching session to get you ready for the test. Okay?
Wow. Yeah.
You know how to get a hold of me. I will work with you on it. But I want you to take the test. If it's ACC and that's what you need to do to get there, take a test. If it's PCC, take the test. You're all ready. You're ready already, okay? I'll put
Thank
my
you so
link
much.
in the scheduling. So I want you to take the test.
Thank you.